tonight to Atlanta Live. You are in for an incredible treat tonight as we have incredible guests and music lined up. You don't want to change the channel. If you're watching on Facebook, you want to share this with a friend because tonight your life is going to be changed. There's nothing better to do on a weeknight than turn to God and be encouraged by Him. And I want to read this to you. Psalms 108, 4 through 6 out of the Passion Translation. It says, "Your love is so extravagant. It reaches higher than the heavens. Your faithfulness is so astonishing. It stretches to the skies. Lord God, be exalted as you soar throughout the heavens. May your shining glory be seen high above all the earth. Come to your beloved ones and gently draw us out. Answer our prayer for your saving help. Come with your might and strength, for we need you, Lord." I think now more than ever in our society, we need the Lord. And so tonight you've made the right choice to be here with us, and we are so excited for what's going to happen. We have Pastor Randy Lubier, so it's going to be an incredible night. And so I'm excited to hear more about what God's doing in the earth with our first guest, Pastor Randy Lubier. Welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
I am so excited to be here. I can't tell you. This is a Christian program.
Yes.
It's made by Christians for Christians.
Yes.
This hasn't happened in New Hampshire.
Okay, yes. So tell us where you're from.
Yeah, I'm from New Hampshire.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, a little tiny town called New Boston, about 4,000 people. And I'm the pastor of a little country church there.
Wonderful. And, you know, some people here in Georgia, they're tuning in from country places. I grew up in a country place too. So that is awesome. We're so glad you're here all the way from New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And you have so much to share with us tonight. So I want to dive right into some questions. So tell us a little bit about yourself and why you wrote this incredible book, which you're going to hear more about tonight, Slow Brewing Tea. This is a great book, and we're going to have plenty of time to see more about it. But tell us about you and what made you write this book.
Well, today I'm a born-again Christian. I'm the pastor of our church, and I've started numerous Christian business startups over in Africa, and every Saturday morning I am down at the rescue mission ministering to the homeless and the down and out. But Caitlin, I wasn't always like this. For 50 years of my life, I was an anti-Christian. I thought you were crazy. I thought you were deluded. I thought you were fooled by an ancient book written by kings to control the masses. I know every argument there is against Jesus Christ in the Bible, and I've used them all. But it turned out that about 12 years ago, at the age of 50, I got curious. A number of things kind of collided in my life, and it got me wondering, do I really know all that I think that I know?
Right.
And so I decided I was going to make a commitment to read that book, a book I swore I was never going to read. But here I did. I sat down with that book and I looked at it and I said, God, if you're real, if you do exist, and if you're in this book, I am going to be one upset man because I will have been wrong for 50 years. But God, I want to know. I want to know if I've been wrong all this time. And so I made a commitment to read it 30, 45 minutes a day. Every night I was in the Bible. I started, because I'm a geek, I decided to start in Genesis and read it on through to Revelation. And so with this commitment to read, I was also reading a study Bible. So I was reading the scripture, I was reading the notes, I was looking up the cross references. I'm a geek. I really wanted to understand this, and I wanted to study it. And so it was about 2.5 months later when God revealed Himself to me. And it was that still small voice. We know it as Christians. Jesus said, "My sheep know my voice," and we do.
Right.
But I didn't for all those 50 years. But right there in the book of Leviticus, God.
That's a shocking book that He got you in.
Right? It's, you know, to many Christians, it's one of the more boring books in the Bible.
Right.
But there I was, God just revealing Himself to me and just ministering to me. And And night after night, I went back to my Bible and I was reading and I'm talking to him and he started to minister to me in ways of just love. And he started to ask me to change. And the first thing he asked me was, Randy, I'd like you to stop lying. Do you think you could try that tomorrow? And I got up the next morning and I tried and I failed. And I got back to my Bible that night, and God, I didn't get it. And all he did was love me. Right. He just smothered me with love. He just coddled me. And as I got better over the days of trying hard not to lie, and I got better at it, and I started to really live in victory over lying. And then God went on to the next one. Right. And the next one after that, and the next one. And it was about 6 months later when God asked me to stop drinking. Now, I was a heavy drinker, Caitlin. And I knew it was coming. Because he'd worked through a lot of other things with me, and I knew he was going to ask me to stop drinking. And I can still remember my last drink. It was June the 17th, 2009. And I gave it up. It was done. It took me 3 months of trying. And I tried hard for those 3 months. And every night I went back to my Bible and I said, Lord, I didn't make it. And he just loved me. He said, try it again tomorrow. And so when I got to Malachi, I got nervous. And I was telling my wife, look, I know the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is my God. He's my God. And he's mine. I got a relationship with him. We talking every night. But this Jesus fella, I'm nervous because I'm in a little bit, I'm going to get into Matthew. And I'm going to meet Jesus. Now, see, I didn't realize I'd been meeting Jesus all along. I didn't know that. I wasn't there yet. I get into Matthew, and a few paragraphs in, I'm like nudging my wife, and I'm like, honey, it's the same God! It's the same God! Yeah. It is. It's the same God. I wrote Slow Brewing Tea as a love story and a hope story. There aren't that many 50-year-old men who get through the narrow gate. And when it happens, I'll tell you, he brought me in, and he brought me in a radical way. And I wrote Slow Brewing Tea as a love story and a hope story for a world that is quite bitter and quite angry.
Yes, and I mean, that is just so amazing to me that you were 50 years. It's not like you grew up in the church, you didn't go, this was a brand new journey for you. And I'm fascinated to know what, after being critical, because normally, once you hit 50, you're kind of set in your ways. Like, this is what I do, this is who I am. What was that spark? Because I feel like there are a lot of people watching tonight who perhaps are in the same situation. Maybe you're in your hotel room and you're flipping through the channel and you're like, this TV, Christian TV, what is this? What is this? And then they're hearing your story. What made you be open from that cold place to say, I'm going to open a Bible? And you went into it so deeply, and now you've written a book, Slow Brewing Tea, about that love story. What caused you to be open to even reading it and testing God in that way? Yeah,
there were a couple of different funerals that we went to. One of my son's girlfriends had committed suicide, and 19 days later, we're at another funeral where my other son's girlfriend had just died in a car accident, and we saw our two sons who looked like they'd been through Vietnam and back, and I saw the second funeral where people were just celebrating the life that this young woman was now going on to live with Jesus. Yeah. And it really struck me. There was kindness there. There was love in that room. There was love of people ministering to me. And it struck me that there's something here that maybe I just don't know all that I thought that I knew. That's what got me
That's powerful. It's the love that got you. And you know, it is so encouraging to know that there's hope beyond this life, and that the love of God came and met you where you were. So we're moving forward to some of your questions in your book. How can slow brewing tea apply to today? And this is the book we're talking about, Slow Brewing Tea, and you can see it on your screen. How does this apply to today? Because I know it's a novel. It's a fiction novel, if you're wondering what slow brewing tea means.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important. Let me just start out with a couple of statistics. Statistics you probably are already aware of, but from 2009 to 2019, Protestant believers in the United States is down by 16%. In 2019, serious attacks, physical attacks against Christians is at an all-time high in both Europe and in the U.S. Why is that? I think I know why. I think that we as Christians can be deeper in love with Jesus Christ. I think that we can go to a deeper level of love with Him. It doesn't matter where we are in our relationship with Jesus. Some of us know Him casually. Others absolutely are deeply in love with Jesus, but we can all go deeper. It's like Jesus has got this big well, it's a bottomless well of His living water, of His love, and He's just waiting to pick it up and dump it on our heads. And we have that opportunity to dive in deeper with Jesus. And I think that when we do, we're going to minister out there in this angry and fretful world, that we will minister out of that love, out of the outpouring of that love. You see, slow brewing tea is like a ringside seat into watching a man wrestle with God for 50 years. Now, it's not a coincidence that the main character in my book came to Jesus at the age of 50. But he's wrestling with God in this book, wrestling for 50 years, and it's a ringside seat into watching him wrestle with God and what he has to say, how he reacts to other people when they're ministering to him. And by the way, it's better than a ringside seat because it's written in the first person. So you're going to be right inside his head the whole way, all along this journey. What is he thinking? What is he thinking and not saying? What is he thinking and saying? And how does this beautiful Japanese family from the far upper reaches of the northern end of the main island of Honshu, it's like 400 miles north of Tokyo, in the remote mountains of Japan, this born-again family is ministering to him over 30 years of time of just ministering, loving him, meeting his needs, meeting his questions, meeting his judgments, meeting all of his anger, and meeting it with the grace and love of Jesus Christ.
That's so powerful. And I love what you're talking there about, you know, there's more of God. And this, he was wrestling, in your book, he's wrestling with, there has to be more to this life, more of God. And, you know, my husband preached a message Sunday about more. And he said, we either follow religious rules or we seek a radical relationship.
Oh, hallelujah.
And I believe that there's so much in this book that people can really glean from as far as learning the love of God, because Jesus met you and he didn't give you a list of rules. He walked with you one step at a time, and he loved you through failures. You know, the Bible says we fall down, but we get back up. The righteous fall down a lot, but we get back up because of the love of Jesus.
Hallelujah.
So we're going to get to interview you some more here in just a few moments, but how can people get in touch with you and get get this book?
Well, they can just go to slowbrewingtea.com.
Okay, great.
Okay, and you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm everywhere at Randy Lubier, but go to slowbrewingtea.com.
Wonderful. So that is slowbrewingtea.com. You want to make sure you go there. And I'm so excited that this interview is not over, that we get to hear more about slow brewing tea from Pastor Randy Lubier. We have an incredible guest with us. If you have been tuned in, you know that we have Pastor Randy Lubier with us. And if you're tuning in for the first time, we have been talking about his incredible conversion experience, meeting God at 50 waiting 50 years to meet God, and then writing an incredible book, Slow Brewing Tea. And so I'm so excited that we get to continue this conversation with you tonight. So let me just kick right off, Slow Brewing Tea. Why would someone watching or listening to this want to read your book?
Yeah. Well, it's a love story and a hope story, I said already. And let me tell you about that. The love story is really on two levels. First off, it's a beautiful Christian romance between a man and a woman, full of twists and turns, and it's G-rated, it's tender, it's raw, it's real. It's a beautiful Christian romance. So that's the love story of the heart. But there's a love story also of God, God's love story, God reaching down and ministering to Isaiah. And bringing him along in this journey, bringing him along so that eventually he falls in love with Jesus Christ. And he never wanted to. Yeah. He never wanted to. He had every argument there is against falling in love with Jesus, and he never even would have used that term. But there he is, that love story of coming and finding the Father just beckoning him in, and he does. He comes in. So that's the two love stories here. But it's also a hope story. Yeah. It's a hope story because, Caitlin, I'll be willing to bet that you've got family, either close family or close friends, that you are praying for. Slow brewing teas in your life. People who maybe are just either casual about their relationship with Jesus, or perhaps they've got a stiff arm to Jesus as well, just like I did, just like Isaiah did. And you're praying for them. You're hoping that they are going to one day know Jesus like you do. There is hope for the slow brewing tea. There is. There's hope for every slow brewing tea out there. It doesn't matter how much they hate the Christian message. It doesn't matter how much they really dislike you, you know, because you are a Christian. There's hope for that slow brewing tea. There is.
That's so powerful, and I think that that's so relevant right now, that we need to hear, you know, more stories on love. Yes. More stories in love of, you know, romance, because all the ladies watching are like, ooh, a good Christian romance. I'm about to hit up slowbrewingtea.com tonight so I can read this book. But also about that love of Jesus and hope. I think more than anything right now, our world is in desperate need of hope and a positive message. And you're not going to find it on the television screen, so you might as well go to slowbrewingtea.com to find out about that. Now, I have a question, two questions actually, so I'm going to pair it. So this book, Slow Brewing Tea, which you've seen on your screens, is based in Japan. But I have a question to pile on that too. What made you decide to call it Slow Brewing Tea instead of Isaiah's epic romance? And the second one is, why is it based in Japan?
Yeah, well, the book, by the way, really kind of wrote itself. So I started writing because God told me to. Everything I do in my life, I feel like I'm just trying to be an obedient son. And so he told me to start writing a book, and he told me to start writing it from Japan because I was in Japan. The book starts out in 1978 in the Cold War in Japan, and that's where I was. I was in the Air Force. I served my country over there.
Thank you.
Yes, and I was there in 1978. And so it was a familiar environment for me. I know those mountains. I know those lakes up there. And it was a way of grounding me in something that was familiar to me. But the book evolved. It evolved. Why did we get to Slow Brewing Tea? Well, that was not the title of the book from the beginning, and it wasn't for maybe 2/3 of the way through the book. And at one point, I had one of the characters in the book does brew actually a slowly brewed tea. And so I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. And then at some point, and I think I was on an airplane actually on one of the transcontinental flights, just typing away, writing this book, and all of a sudden I realized, oh, slow brewing tea. I'm a slow brewing tea. Isaiah is a slow brewing tea.
Right.
And Japan is a slow brewing tea itself. Yeah. And so that's where the title came from.
That's powerful. And, even as you were saying that, the slow brewing tea, I thought about, when you do make a tea that's slow brewing, it is stronger.
Oh, yeah.
It's a stronger tea that's slow brewing. And so
Hallelujah.
what a powerful message this is. And what an interesting setting. I know that there are many of you watching tonight. This is a great book, I believe, to get someone who perhaps is questioning God and stiff-arming, as you would say, the Lord. Why would you encourage someone to get this book for a non-Christian or a slow brewing tea in their life?
Yeah. Well, great question. I think the first off, before we even get to giving the book away, I want to say that this book is really for every Christian. This is going to bring you deeper in love with Jesus. And here's why. Because the gospel is all through this book. Now, you can imagine that as this Japanese family has been ministering to this gentleman for 30 years of his life, they keep throwing at him the gospel, and in different settings and in different ways. And when you read over and over about the gospel of peace and the gospel of love of Jesus Christ, you just can't help but fall in love with Jesus at a deeper level. And that's what I think every Christian needs. But in terms of giving this book away, I'll tell you what's happening. What's happening with Christians giving this book away is they're giving it to someone who knows them well, that doesn't understand what happened to them as a born-again Christian. You see, when I'm 50 years old, and everybody in my life knew me for the old me. Right. I shocked everyone. My family, my family, some of my family still doesn't understand. And this book is a great way to hand to somebody and say, look, I'm not trying to get you to come to church. I'm not asking you to read a Bible. I'm not asking you to even agree with me. But we love each other. And this is a great novel. It's it's a love story and a spiritual adventure. And if it had nothing to do with Christianity, I'd give it to you anyway, because it's a great story. But it does have something to do with Christianity. But I think you're going to understand me a little bit better.
And this is a great, for those who are watching tonight, you're intimidated, and it is intimidating to evangelize, to share your faith. Well, just grab this book and give it to a friend with a coffee shop gift card so they can have a coffee and a love story. I mean, and pray that God gets their attention through this book. So tell us again, because I want to make sure that we get all of this in. How can our viewers tonight who want to get this book, whether they're a believer or not, or want to share this with somebody or get a few copies, because Christmas is coming up, guys, how can they get the book and then also stay in touch with you?
Yeah, go to slowbrewingtea.com. That's the website, slowbrewingtea.com. It's easy to spell. You can get there quickly. You'll be able to buy the book from that website. And also follow me on social media. I'm at Randy Loubier. That's L-O-U-B as in boy, I-E-R. It's French.
Yep, and we have it on the bottom of the screen.
There we go. So at Randy Loubier, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I'm on all those places. I would love to connect with everyone who is listening.
Or have a cup of tea with them.
Yeah, or have a cup of tea with them.
And before, just in the next couple of seconds, tell us as they watch, what is next for you as a speaker and author?
Oh my goodness, I got so much coming, Caitlin, but let me just give you a quick snapshot. From here, I'm heading out to Albuquerque, New Mexico to go preach in the war zone at somebody's church. And this book is about building bridges, by the way, intercultural bridges.
That's
and I'll
powerful.
be there in New Mexico preaching to the people, the down and out there. And I want, from there, I've got all sorts of Bible studies that are going to be coming off of this book, because this book, the reader is going to discover an amazing way to study Scripture. And I've got Bible studies coming out that'll follow on to this.
Awesome. Well, you have been incredible tonight. That is Pastor Randy Loubier. You want to make sure to go to slowbrewingtea.com and make sure to follow him and pick up the book.